Now, you're doing something really cool on this tour, and you've been doing it the past couple of years. You do a lot of work with the LLS, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. You want to tell me a little bit about your connection and what you're doing to help them out on this tour?
Recently, as far back as a couple of years ago, we designed these T-shirts for the Foundation for the Leukemia people. What we do is we sell the T-shirt, and sometimes we give $1 for each ticket that we sell.
Right.
It goes to the Foundation for Leukemia Research, and same with the T-shirt.
That's great. It's a really, really good thing that you're doing, and I know you're selling the T-shirts on your website, which is just georgethorogood.com. Put that out there for everybody. Mm-hmm. And you have released your first solo album in August, and it is by far one of the best. I love acoustic type albums, and I've been waiting for you to do something like this. And it's called Party of One. Just tell me a little bit about this album and why it took 40 years to do.
Interesting question. When I first started, I was a solo act, like everybody is. And I intended to do that first.
Right.
And then, move on to, putting a band together and moving on to an electric situation. Not like, just about everybody ever started in the business. Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, the Byrds,
right.
The Mamas and Papas. Everybody started out as an acoustic act.
Right.
And then move on to the electric scene. And that's what I was doing. Unfortunately, I didn't have a record label that was, interested. By the time I kind of ran out of steam doing that. It peaked.
Right.
It peaked.
Right. Okay.
I did as much as I could do.
Yeah.
I'm not as equipped to do something that's such as like a John Hammond or Taj Mahal. Who were brilliant at that. And I kind of peaked out, and I saw Hound Dog Taylor, and I had this song, One Bourbon, One Scotch, and One Beer, that was better to be done with a band.
Right.
And I knew that was the song that was going to break me or break us.
Right.
And I needed a band to do that. So we kind of put the acoustic thing on hold. But there were certain clubs where I would go out and play for about 20 minutes alone,
mm-hmm.
and then come back, 20, 30 minutes later with the band and play 2 sets. So we did that too. Occasionally, before we got a record out, I would do a solo act like on a Monday night or something,
right?
Like at a coffee house or something like that, pass the hat, that kind of thing. But once we got with Rounder, that was always a project that we talked about mm-hmm. regularly, because that was more their style.
Right.
They're not a rock out label, but that was always something we said we're going to get around to that. But it seemed like every time we went to do a record, there'd be a new rock and roll song we had to do.
Right.
And if we didn't do it, we knew someone else would. It was Bad at the Bone, for instance. We're all ready to get there, but then EMI came in. The reason they wanted to sign us, EMI America, was because of that song.
Right.
See, so I couldn't backtrack and say, well, no, I want to do an acoustic album now. Well, it just wasn't the time for it.
Of course.
I said, well, you got to move on this thing.
Yeah.
And besides, if I hadn't recorded Bourbon Scotch and Beer, somebody else would have.
Right.
So, Tom Waits would have got a hold of it, or Dean Martin, or somebody.
Yeah.
And when we put together the title, Bad to the Bone, we did it, and they said, what made you do that? I said, it would just been a matter of time for someone else would have done it. It's just too common. It's just too obvious. It's so obvious that there will be somebody that will do this, so I might as well be me.
Now, you revisit One Bourbon, One Scotch, One Beer on this album.
Yeah, I pretty much presented it as when I used to do it. When I used to do that song in the clubs, and
mm-hmm.
went over really well.
Right.
Not just me playing the song itself. I said, with the proper treatment, this song could really take off.
Yeah.
Because I'd heard John Lee Hooker do it, and heard Bryony McGee and Sonny Terry do it. Bryony McGee did it just with an acoustic guitar. He had the whole place rocking. I said, this song is too good to be not known.
Right.
It has to be done. I got to do it before Jay Giles puts it on their live record.
Well, and it's great, and it's a shorter version. I describe it to people. It's like you just cut the landlady part out of it, and it's more like just right at the bar. You're getting your drinks, and this album is so raw, and it's just so unbelievable. And my favorite song on it was Soft Spot. I don't know why, out of all the songs on the album, just that one stood out to me, and I really liked the message behind it. What was the process like picking the songs for this album?
Well, some of them were there in the waiting, and I wanted to do material that I had done when I was a solo act. Well, we got into the record, and I got to about 4 or 5 songs, and I said, that's not going to be enough. And I said, maybe we had just sort of stopped doing this. And then Soft Spot came up through Rounder. I said, well, I'm a company man. I want to do something. And I have I have a conscience and a sensitivity towards homeless people in this country. I mean, after all, unfortunately, it's not always their fault if they're on the streets, and people, will get harsh and say, well, they deserve what they get. I said, well, that's just, sometimes a person ends up in a hospital because someone else ran the light and cracked into the car. Okay?
Absolutely.
So I said, this is supposed to be the most affluent country in the world. Mm-hmm. And I live in California, the most affluent state in the most affluent country.
Right.
And it just people starving on the streets eating out. I said, there's something wrong here. Something just doesn't make, and it gets worse.
Right.
And it keeps getting worse. So when the song came up, I said, well, this is good. And Rounder was very, sensitive to that. And I said, all right, I'm behind this kind of thing, and I needed the material anyway.
Right. Of course.
So I said, well, come on, I need some more tunes. Moving on from that, excuse me, the person produced it, we both came up with the idea of, well, instead of just saying we're going to do this, why don't you try to pick a song from every artist that means something to you?
Okay.
It doesn't have to be blues.
Right.
It doesn't have to be something that was already in your repertoire years ago. So I said, okay, let's do a Hank Williams song. Let's do a Bob Dylan song.
Yeah.
Let's do a John Hammond song. Let's do a Johnny Cash song. And then the songs started to come to me. That's what opened it up.
And the Soft Spot almost has a Johnny Cash feel to it. When I first heard it, I was like, oh, that's the Johnny Cash song on the album. But then it's actually Bad News was the Johnny Cash song.
Right.
I mean, which is just a great song. And I mean, if I could tell anybody anything, listen to this album. It's you. I mean, it's so intimate and it's just so powerful. Mm-hmm. And I think it culminizes everything that you've been about for the last 40 years and really brings your career together.
Well, you better get this record. There will be no volume 2.
No volume 2.
No party of 2. That's it.
No party of 2.
That's it. Yeah.
Now is this something that you would maybe take on the road and maybe do an intimate type tour?
No. It's the album is Party of 1, but the Destroyers are a rock party.
Right.
That's what we are.
And
you're who wants to hear Peter Wolf sit down on an acoustic guitar? You want to hear him do the J. Giles thing?
That's right.
You see, so that's me. Once I watched John Hammond, I watched Brownie McGee, and watched these people. Said, "Yeah, I'm not getting that." When I saw Hound Dog Taylor and I saw Peter Wolf perform, and I saw them real close together, mm-hmm. I said, "That's it. There it is. That's me. That's where you want to go. That's the thing." The acoustic thing is nice and it's very esoteric and it's mm-hmm. very distinguished and that kind of thing, but it's just really not me.
Right. Yeah, you got to be yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Robert Lockwood was instrumental in building my confidence. Said, I want you to get an electric guitar, a bass player and a drummer, and go out there and conquer the world.
I think you succeeded in that.
Put that acoustic guitar down. I thought, I did all right for Jimi Hendrix.
If it worked for Jimmy, it could work for George.
Right.
I mean, come on. Now, we got Record Store Day this weekend, and you actually have a release coming out for Record Store Day.
Yes.
You want to tell me a little bit? You covered the Sonics.
Yes.
Which is, I wasn't familiar with the song, and then I went and listened to it, and I was like, that's a perfect George Thorogood song.
Yeah. Well, I was on the road, and my wife called me on the phone and said, I heard this great song on the radio. I think it'd be great for you guys. It'd be really your kind of thing. And I'm thinking, I know every song.
Right.
Yeah. When you say it sounds like the 60s, which is really my time.
Right.
I got there a little late to the party.
Yeah.
And I looked at people like Can Heat, Savoy Brown, Steppenwolf before they did Born to Be Wild.
Right.
People like that. And then, of course, the Allman Brothers, Johnny Winter. I said, that's me. But I didn't get there till about 77. Mm-hmm. But my heart and soul was more in 67, 68, 69. Right. That was my time. So I knew every song from the 60s. At least I thought I did.
Right.
Until I heard this one. So I immediately played it. I said, oh my God, the woman's a genius.
And it's called Shot Down.
I said, this is it, man. This is... Because when you get to this point in your for lack of other words, career... You say, well, I can't keep playing the same songs. You say, well, we were always looking for a new song or a different song. But as you go on, people just don't want to hear new stuff.
Right.
They like you to stick to the thing. And there's less time to play. Mm-hmm. It's not like the old days people jam for 18 hours.
Right.
There's curfews, there's stuff. So you only got a certain amount of time to squeeze something in there.
Yeah.
But our ears are always open to say, let's see if we can find something, or maybe there's something in our catalog that'll work.
Right.
But a brand new one, brand new to us.
Yeah.
And the guy in our band, our sax player, had heard of the band. You know, I hadn't heard of the song. But little did I know, outside of that, this band, the Sonics, was well known.
Right.
And they had a hit. It's just somehow I missed this one. And I'm glad I did, because I can do it now.
Yeah. And I felt the same way. I looked it up and I was like, oh man, that led me into other songs by them. And I was sitting in my office for an hour and I'm like, this band is just so good. I'm like, how did I not be more familiar? I've heard of them, but I wasn't familiar with all of their songs.
Well, again, when I was kicking around in school, the songs that got me. Of course, everybody dug the Stones and the Beatles and Dylan and that, but there were certain tunes that came along that really, like "Nighttime" by the Strange Loves, 96 Tears, Gloria by them. There were certain tunes that came up that just spoke of the 60s, of those times, and some of them were really, really groovy tunes. Some of them got lost by the wayside, some of them stuck around. But that was common. There was a band that came out of Delaware and New York that I was nuts about. I still saw them live. Was the Blues Magoos, if you know who they are. Check them out. They got a live version of, not a live, I saw them play live and they let off with Gloria.
Right.
And the first song on their second album is Gloria, and it is a monster. You just tear this thing to pieces. But I was a big fan of that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
When I went to see Steppenwolf, they had just released Born to Be Wild as a single, and people were booing them. They didn't want to hear it. It was too commercial.
Really?
And they played it in both their sets, and I was watching them, and the place wasn't packed, but they were so good, and they were had so much stuff that was blues rooted,
right? But
it wasn't straight blues. And that guy's voice, my God, you know, I said, man, this is. So I was more of a, you know, when I heard Giles in '71. I thought of them more like in '68, '69, around that time, you know, because they were seasoned players.
Right.
Giles and Magic Dick and Wolf, of course. And when I saw them live, I said, these guys have done their homework. There just might be a couple of years too late. And I was a lot of years. I was so late, I was new.